I am so honored and I'm very touched to be nominated and then to have been chosen by drama school students to speak to you. Dramaturgy is not the most populous department at YSD. In fact, acting has us beat by a ratio of about 3-to-1, which does make me wonder if the electoral process was strictly on the up and up. But I'm touched because to have been selected means that I have been seen by my students. And I want to talk to you today about being seen and seeing and about perceptivity and to use the language of a Yale graduation ceremony, its rights and responsibilities. Because perceiving is a big part of my job. Now, with a job title like mine, I imagine that I'll have to start with exactly what it is that I do. In fact, each August during orientation, I have to stand before a new group of drama school students and explain just how we train dramaturgs. Often I begin with an extended metaphor based on either what I'm wearing or what I did on my summer vacation. As a key part of training a dramaturg is to arm her to answer that never-ending question, what is a dramaturg? Formerly, I had a standard answer, which was none of your damn business. Now, this was literally true 100% of the time when someone asked me that question. Then I mellowed, and I fell to quoting Shakespeare's Abhorsen. He's the executioner in Measure for Measure who says, our trade is a mystery. Now, the virtue of this is that it was not only accurate, but it had a double meaning. It was both unknown and an occupational collective in the medieval context. The title of dramaturg qua dramaturg, which is probably the ugliest collection of 7 syllables you will ever hear, was claimed first by Gotthold Ephraim Lessing in the mid-18th century in, you guessed it, Germany. In Hamburg, in fact, where he was invited into the theater by the theater's leadership and asked to write about his observations. As soon as he began, he was summarily barred the premises. One year I compared dramaturgy to cricket, the rules of which I had learned by immersion therapy when I was living with very rudimentary television reception in Northern Ireland during the Ashes. Exactly. Comparing dramaturgy and cricket is a little bit like comparing apples to some very, very, very obscure citrus. That was actually a trick. In the apple slide, the dramaturg was the lemon. It was the fruit outside the bowl, categorically similar, but with widely different applications. Last year, my metaphor was based on a T-shirt that I had bought that summer in a Soho store called The Hundreds. No one in the store knew the meaning of this cartoon. Does anyone here recognize this cartoon? Yeah. Thank God. How old are you? I'm not saying. Okay. This cartoon has been completely ripped from its context. The duck is from Groucho Marx's popular television quiz show of the 1950s and 60s. You bet your life. Each episode had a secret word written on a card and stuck in the duck's mouth. Groucho would alert the contestants, say the secret word, and win $100. And if anyone inadvertently said it, the duck would plunge down and everyone would be so happy to have won $50. I told the students that this duck was a fraying tether to the time of extraordinary vitality in American letters, a time when highbrow and lowbrow mingled profitably for both. In fact, the cartoon was a duck made up to look like Groucho because it was a tribute to a famous Marx Brothers skit in which Chico and Groucho have a misunderstanding about drainage. Groucho says about swampland in Florida, and along here will be the viaducts. And Chico says, I don't know, why a duck? So this duck, I said, was their heritage, that it bound them to an American cultural institution and a theatrical treasure. Groucho Marx and his brothers Chico, Harpo, and yes, even Gummo and Zeppo were the connective tissue between a dying vaudeville and a new medium, film. And the Marx brothers were a vital link to the traditions of the Commedia dell'arte from centuries before, and in turn, a link from traditions that went back as far as Aristophanes. This duck cried out to me from the right there in Soho as it was being sucked into the vortex of time. It was my job as dramaturg, standing, clutching its wing and reaching for the students with my other hand, not to pull them in, but to make a useful tension, make use of the vital tension created by the vortex of time and the sinew of their youth. By the manipulation of tradition and by the hands of the new order. That creative tension, that's dramaturgy. Sometimes I try to explain one part of my title by reaching for the other and refer to the dramaturg as an in-house critic. Friendly to the production, I rush to add, because criticism has become that activity that dare not speak its name. But why should that be? T.S. Eliot wrote that criticism is as inevitable as breathing. And I'll give him this. It's certainly an activity that most people do without thinking about it. It's tricky, though, because criticism is also a vector. It has magnitude and direction. So coming from me, great. Coming at me, hold on there, not so much. And so why are we training students to become so unknowable and despised? And who signs up for that? They're up there. We do it because a culture that cannot tolerate scrutiny is moribund. In a time when watching has morphed into surveillance, which is watching to control, it's more important than ever to train young artists and scholars who are willing to watch in order to understand. That's why I chose the cricket analogy. If you can watch your way into understanding googlies, LBWs, silly mid-off, and cow corner, you can watch your way into understanding anything. A dramaturg is trained to watch, think, and then, heaven help her, to speak her thoughts. And I'm going to tell you a story. Now, in fact, a colleague of mine says that old dramaturgs never die. They simply slip into their anecdotage. And we do, as a cohort, tend to speak in parable as well as extended metaphor, depending on what you did on your summer vacation. The indirect route is sometimes the best path to communicate a difficult note to a director or a playwright or a wayward Nazarene. But I digress. Oh yeah, we profit in digressions too. You can ask my students right up there. As a young dramaturg, I was working on a student play about Anne Morrow Lindbergh. It was very experimental. It had 2 Charles Lindberghs. It was very brave, but it was not very good, and the rehearsal hall was very, very tense. The actors were working on stage when I leaned over to the director, to say something probably about lunch. I mean, I hadn't even opened my mouth when one of the Charleses wheeled on me. He said, "Catherine Sheehy, you have no idea what it's like to be up here." I simply observed, "That's very true, name withheld, but you have no idea what it's like to be out here looking at you." Perception is a dramaturg's stock in trade. Being perceived, that is, being seen and understood, is a gift. It is a gift that a dramaturg gives to all her collaborators as a matter of professional course. Now, name withheld didn't understand that at the time, but I have to admit that the next day there was a big bunch of flowers for me in the main office. So I guess I could tell you now that it was Sean Cullen, and if you've seen Michael Clayton, you've seen him. So being perceived is a gift, but perceptivity is a responsibility, for a dramaturg certainly, but one that if we are to improve our world, our society, our university, we must all cultivate. I won't presume to inspiration, but I hope that's where I've been at least useful to you tonight. My job is to watch, to think, and to speak, constructively for preference, but honestly for sure. That's why we train dramaturgs, because it is an act of courage to say what you think, really think. And the theater, never mind our world, is often short of that kind of courage. To say what you think is a critical act, defined by nothing more than the ability to read what you see, the ability to compare what you see to other things you have seen, and the ability to decide whether a thing or what about that thing is good. And finally, the sensitivity to consider how it might be improved. And this is where I hope the human tendency to extrapolate kicks in, from my job description to my wish for you tonight. Because I think I've got a new definition for dramaturgy. A dramaturg is that creature who can take a hangman, 11 men in white flannel on a greensward, a duck, Groucho Marx, an apple, a lemon, a bunch of mandarin quats, the nun-sparing eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberger, that wild wag of an oculist from The Great Gatsby, and 500 Yaleys, and really make something with it that has the potential to change the world. So thank you.